So when finding the greatest common factor for these two terms, we have negative 15a to the 2b power, and then we also have 35a to the 3b power. What we have to look at is we want to definitely, what I tell my students is you want to go ahead and break off each individual part. So just looking at negative 15 and looking at 35, then what we would do is we would take a look at the a to the 2b power and a to the 3b power. So we're basically separating them. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So on this, let me go ahead and get another color so we can make it a little easier to see. Here we would just look at negative 15, and then we would also look at 35. So from these two numbers, what would be the greatest common factor, or what is the biggest number that goes into both of these terms? Well, if we look at it, we would say, let's just start with 5. We would go 5, 10, 15, 20. Well, in this case, we would only know that 5 really goes into it because 5 can go into 15 3 times, and 5 can go into 35 7 times. And then if you look a little further, you'll notice that there's nothing else that can go into it except for 5. That would be the greatest number. So in this case, for these two numbers, our greatest common factor here, so let's just write GCF up here, that would actually be 5. Now, I know that a lot of times students say, well, what about this negative? Well, you don't really deal with the negative unless there's another negative right here for the 35, which there isn't. So here, we're just going to take out a 5. So now, let's go ahead and look at our a2b and our a to the 3b power. So when we're dealing with exponents, the best way to find the greatest common factor is just to find the lowest exponent, because realistically that's exactly what the greatest common factor is. It's finding the biggest number, and that's where it can get confusing, but when we're dealing with exponents we have to think of it in an opposite way. So when we have a to the 2b power and a to the 3b power, the largest number that goes into both of them is 2b, because 2b as an exponent can go into 3b. So in this case it would be a to b. So our greatest common factor is 5a to the 2b power. And that's exactly what you would want to do. So for these two numbers, 5a to b can go into here, and 5a to b can go into here. Let's go ahead and try another one though, just to make sure we fully understand this. So I'm going to go ahead and erase everything. And we'll go ahead and do another one, just so we can make sure we understand this completely. So let's say we did negative 12, and let's stick with a 3b, and let's do negative 36 a 7b. So we'll make it a little harder just so we can understand this a little bit better. Well, remember, let's look at the negative 12 and the negative 36 first, because it just makes everything just a little bit easier when we break it off. So what would be the biggest number that goes into both of them? Because that's what the greatest common factor is. And we would know that it would be, by doing all of our work, and once we find out, it would be negative 12, because negative 12 goes both into negative 12 and negative 12 goes into negative 36. Sometimes you might get away with just seeing a number like negative 12 right away and be able to see that it goes into negative 36. That doesn't always happen, but in this case we got a little lucky here. If not, you would want to go ahead and find two numbers. You can start with 2, and you can go 2, 4, 6, 8. And you can just go down the list, because you know 4 goes into 12, and then you know 4 goes into 36. You know 6 goes into 12, and then you know 6 goes into 36. So you can just start eliminating numbers right off the bat as you continue to go. That's one way you can do it. If you don't know your multiplication or your divisibility rules, that's something that you can do. It'll take a little longer, but it works. Here we found out, and let's just restart another one. So we have GCF. We know that it's negative 12. Now, if you're asking why is it negative, because both of these numbers have a negative. So in that case, you actually want to factor out a negative. So these two numbers here would be negative 12. Well, now let's look at a to the 3b power and a to the 7b power? Well, in this case, we look at the smallest exponent, which is 3b. So there we know our greatest common factor is the base. We always take out the base when they're the same. So that would be 12a to the 3b power. So hopefully that video was helpful. If you have any questions, please just let me know and I'd be happy to help you.